Hi, and welcome to News and Views. I'm Suzanne Dowdy.
And I'm Sandee, Bengochea.
And good morning to you and good morning to our viewers. Welcome. So, well, Sandee, and to those who... Did you know Bishop Sidney Charles personally?
Very well. Well, I'm from the St. Joseph Parish.
Oh, yes, of course.
Yes. And
so for those who do not know that he passed away on Tuesday. And so, of course, the Catholic News did not, waste a moment in making this front page.
Sometimes when someone passes, you say it's a life well lived.
Yes,
And I remember all the times he would come to the parish to do mass sometimes, and the whole parish would just be happy. There was just a feeling of happiness, and he would always be smiling, and he wanted to touch everyone.
Had a kind word and gesture for everyone.
He was just so full of love, and I think his energy lives on in that parish.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh,
yes.
Actually, the front page photograph is of him in the front of the altar in St. Joseph Church. Yes.
Unmistakable.
And he was born in St. Joseph way back in 1926.
Because even in the book that's published by St. Joseph, book of the church published in St. Joseph, they said that he was one of the persons who came out of the Catholic experience there, who became a bishop from that church. So his picture is actually featured in the magazine, in the book, as one of the persons who served in that church and who attended and worshipped at that church and who became a bishop.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, so he is a bit of a legend where I come from.
Yes. And his funeral, now he's Trinidad born as we know, and his funeral will take place at the Cathedral of the Immaculate Conception, but in St. George's, Grenada. So don't get it confused. This is where he's been living for the past however many years.
And I know many people have been campaigning for Trinity to beam it across.
And I think we are hoping to do that. So once everything is in order and we can do it, those of you who cannot fly over to St. George's, Grenada, we'll be able to bring it here for you.
And I know the St. Joseph, some of the parishioners have been talking, the relatives of Bishop Sidney Charles have been asking, whether or not they've been looking at exploring the possibility of putting up a big screen somewhere, if not in the church or somewhere, where people of St. Joseph can come and actually,
nice.
Yes, he's well loved in his hometown.
Yes, of course. Despite recent health challenges, we read here in the front page of the Catholic News, Bishop Charles attended the July 2017 ordination of Bishop Harvey in a wheelchair to fulfill his role as co-consecrator. And some of us were there in Grenada when Bishop Harvey was consecrated. And so we saw him coming there, being pushed in the wheelchair. I mean, he lived his life to the full, to the very last moment. And his eldest nephew was contacted. He lives abroad. And he said that his Uncle Sid, as they call him, SYD for short, Uncle Sid, will likely be entombed at the crypt of the cathedral.
Yeah, well, his eldest nephew is Peter Charles, who lives in St. Joseph right now.
Oh, he lives in St. Joseph. Sorry, okay, all right. I thought he lived abroad. Because they quote another member of the family who I think lives abroad. So, okay, we learned here too that he was also, now this is a connection in Trinidad that I never knew about. Retired Father Benedict Hilaire, also known as Father Bunty, and columnist Vernon Kellerwan are both nephews of Bishop Charles. I never knew that. You knew that?
No, I didn't know that at all.
So Father Bunty and Vernon Kellerwan are cousins. So I learned that today.
Yes, I know Peter and also Charles Peter and his wife Claire are also very, very, very active in church. Well, of course, they're older now, they have some health challenges, but they have also been very much involved with the marriage movement.
In the St. Joseph?
In the St. Joseph area as well. And I know that he would visit them very often, so like whenever he was in Trinidad, he would stay with that family.
Oh, and that's why I think they said here in the article that whenever he came, he celebrated Mass just for the two of them.
Yes.
Beautiful. So they said that he was lying flat in bed, immobile. He had lost a tremendous amount of weight. His eyes were open, and they thought he was getting pneumonia, what Father Bunty said when he last saw him. But it was not a shock because they knew that he was ailing, that, all his physical body was failing and so, but he held, faithful to the end, loving to the end, and
at peace with himself.
And
at peace with himself.
And the world.
Yes.
Father Bunty shared one of these funny stories about him, where He was in the car with his uncle returning from a bazaar, and Bishop Charles had a little mini Austin car. How many of you remember those little mini Austins? And on one occasion, he said 13 people fit in the car. Well, I don't know how that's possible. He said his uncle, Bishop Charles, was only stopping for people, and I don't know how 5 fit in the front seat. It's a 2-door car after all. His uncle's reasoning was that if he didn't stop to pick them up, they wouldn't get transport that night, so I have to stop and pick them up.
Yeah, yeah.
So 13 of them fit into this car.
Now, if you've had experience like me with picking up boys from the college after camp,
yes,
and they have a way of getting in. Yeah, and you just sit and you just breathe, and watch them, and they will fit.
Yeah,
and he had just the type of
not impossible.
Yeah, he had just the type of personality to do something like that. A really fantastic person that you couldn't help but love him on sight.
And everybody has said so, from the time we heard that he had died, everybody's been saying the same thing. The article continues from the front page to page 3. A release sent to the Catholic News from Vicar General Father Carl Haynes on Tuesday said that Bishop Charles' deep love of people, gentle manner and sense of humor saw new beginnings for the church in Grenada, especially with the young people for whom he had a special love. It stated, however, events overtook him with the coming to power of the New Jewel movement led by Maurice Bishop way back in 1979. He often joked, Bishop Charles often joked that Grenada then had 2 bishops, religious and political. The release mentioned that those days took a heavy toll on him, but Bishop Charles remained steadfast in his love for and commitment to Grenada and its people. So I think they consider him sort of more Grenadian than Trinidadian, I suppose.
Yes, they accepted him, they adopted him, and they loved him. Yes.
All right, so that's it for that story. And we go to our editorial now, The Healing Gift of Free Speech. And the editor writes, taking the lead from the text of the weekend gospel, let us take a moment to reflect on and celebrate the precious gift of freedom of expression, or freedom of speech, an important symbol of our dignity and liberty as children of God. St. Mark in this week's gospel tells the story of the healing of a man with an impediment in his speech. After Jesus touches a man's ear and tongue, the ligament of his tongue was loosened and he spoke clearly. So the editor goes on, clear, unimpeded speech can be an important source of healing and catharsis for people, including members of the church. Those of us following the international news media may be somewhat shocked at the torrent of abuse being directed at the leaders of the church, who, as Pope Francis says, showed no care for the little ones and allowed sexual abuse to occur. Here we find not simply wild, excessive anger. We have arrived at a moment when, for the victims of abuse and their families, the ligament of their tongue is being loosened, and they now speak clearly. And that is so true. And, not only in the church, in the secular world, in Hollywood and these places where that sexual abuse, not necessarily of minors or children, but of women. Everybody just seems to be, free to speak now, because those first brave ones who came out and said what happened to them, now that they're being accepted and their stories being accepted as true, others who have held back for so long are coming forward now.
Yes, and it's really a cleansing that's happening, and I think we should be happy. It's, as with all cleansing, it's very difficult for us to work with and so on, to accept. But I think it's so necessary,
of course,
that we listen, especially listen to our children, and it's a kind of a growing up of a society as well, when you recognize.
And I mean, for us as Catholics, it couldn't be more painful, but we are so happy that it is being addressed and is not being hidden anymore. So, and on the back page, which we will come to at some stage before, because we really want to go to this, is Conversations with Archbishop J, and he is handling that in part this week, so we'll come to that. The editor goes on that in the world outside the church, here at home, we have heard the heated recriminations made by the majority union, as several hundred employees of the Petrotrin refinery at Pointe-à-Pierre are at the point of losing their jobs. We have also had the recent Pride March in Port of Spain by members of the local LGBT community in support of their basic rights. And the Archbishop said, that was a sign of
a true democracy
is alive and well. Unfortunately, not all citizens are capable of articulate self-expression. Not all of us can easily or successfully stand up for our rights. And the editor reminds us of a recent newspaper story of a 65-year-old man who was hauled before the magistrate in San Fernando because he had a confrontation with the guards at the general hospital, and he used a knife and obscene language. And so the editor is going on to say that sometimes there's some people who cannot articulate their anger in a more mature way.
And it's so true. I remember when I taught, I would always tell my students, the lack of language, grammar and language is a tool that you use to express yourself and to have a conversation. And a lot of times you find people who have not been educated or who have not allowed themselves to accept the education outside that's available. Whenever they can't find a word, they throw the F word. Whenever they don't have a word to express themselves, they do that. And then when they can't find the word to say and they can't find a way to express their emotions, they get angry and it erupts in anger and physical, because you need to get it out, you need to express, this is how I'm feeling, but you don't have the words to do it. So it comes out in their body language and their anger. And I think this is probably, I don't know the man personally, but I suspect that in all his pain and his trauma,
because he was trying to get to visit his sister, apparently.
And in his frustration, not to be able to explain himself and to understand the system and to understand what he should have done or what he should have said, he just lost it, and maybe some of us, maybe we need to be trained to handle that kind of situation as well.
In the Church's social teaching tradition, beginning with the Vatican II document, Dignitatis Humanae, freedom of expression has always been seen as a necessary corollary to one of the most basic and important freedoms we have as human beings, the right to religious freedom. And this document asserts that people have a God-given duty to search for the truth and embrace that truth once it is found. It asserts that truth is to be sought publicly in free dialogue with others, and that religious bodies have an inherent right not simply to come together around a common faith, but to proclaim and recommend that faith to others. Perhaps the time has come for the local church to see the creation of truly free speech as an essential part of its pastoral priorities. And so, of course, we're not reading the whole editorial. When you get your copy of the Catholic News, you will be able to read it yourself. We're going to take a little break now, our first break, and this, of course, is the papal audience. And when we come back, perhaps what we'll do is maybe go to the back page.
Yes, I think so.
Because this is really important, what the Archbishop here is talking about, and it ties in with the first paragraph of the editorial. So let's take a break and listen to the Holy Father.
Before the general audience, the Pope toured St. Peter's Square in the Popemobile, accompanied by a group of children. Later, Pope Francis was greeted in the square by a music band who played for him this joyful melody. In his catechesis, the Pope reflected on the commandment to keep holy the Lord's Day and spoke of the meaning of rest.
The dominant concept of life today does not have its center of gravity in activity and commitment. It's in evasion. Earn money to have fun. Satisfy yourself. The image model is that of a successful person who can afford ample and different spaces of pleasure. Man has never rested so much as today. And yet man has never experienced so much emptiness as today.
Pope Francis recalled that in the Bible, God's rest is related to looking joyfully at reality, and that this is the model of authentic rest.
Sunday is not the day to erase the other days, but to remember them, bless them, and make peace with life. Sunday is the day to make peace with life by saying, life is precious. It is not easy. Sometimes it is painful, but it is precious.
In a catechesis full of optimism, the Pope asked to resist the temptation to highlight the problems and instead contemplate the good things in life. He said that true serenity does not consist in changing one's own history, but in welcoming and appreciating it.
He said Sunday is not the day to forget about the days that have gone, but to remember them, bless them, and yeah, beautiful.
Thank God for them, yeah.
Yes.
That is very profound.
Well, our Holy Father, Pope Francis, is under some real pressure today, as is the whole Church. But he, as the head of the Catholic Church, you cannot imagine if he sleeps at night and how many hours he must spend on his knees in prayer, even at his age, because it's a very painful time. And the editorial this week touched a little bit on it, and we're going to go to the back page here with conversations with Archbishop J. We must protect our children. And the question, Archbishop G, what is happening to our church? And it may be necessary, actually, to read a lot of this letter, because I think every paragraph means something.
Yes, yes, and I think it's important.
Yes,
because,
it is.
It's important that our congregation, our people understand the church's perspective on our response.
And I'm sure that this will be one of many that Archbishop Jason will, come out and talk about in the Catholic News. And of course, at halftime, we invite you, the viewer, to pick up the phone, give us a call, and join in the conversation. The recent publication of the 1,300-page grand jury report in the United States detailing the systemic abuse of over 1,000 children in 6 Pennsylvania dioceses over the past 7 decades was shocking. It has shattered the faithful in the Catholic Church worldwide. Many members of our community have expressed dismay and felt gut-wrenching anguish for the abused and their families. Disappointment in our church and its leadership is widespread. The subsequent disclosures in the letter from Archbishop Vigano, the former nuncio to the United States, plunged the church into more uncertainty, especially with his allegation of a high-level Vatican cover-up of former Cardinal Theodore McCarrick's abuse. This is a dark night for our church. Children have been traumatized, families are in turmoil, and lives have been ruined. Let us all commit to deep prayer for all victims, their families. We must also pray for perpetrators of abuse. We need to ensure collaboration at all levels within the church so its environment is safe for all children. And I mean, just that's just the first part of this interview with Archbishop Jason. But in it, too, you hear, his own pain as leader of the church here in our archdiocese. And, we thank God that at least now the church is facing it, that, Pope Francis has come out, and recognized what is happening. It's not a problem that is going to be fixed overnight or with the snap of your fingers or the blink of an eye, but at least we're on that journey.
Yes, and he goes on, as I reflect on the multiple levels of incompetence and cover-up, my reaction, and this is our Archbishop, my reaction is lamentation and anger. How can someone who accepted a vocation to shepherd the children of God prey on his sheep?
Which is my question all along. It's just...
But worse, the leaders did not protect the innocent. And this passage has now become a prayer. Let the priests who minister before the Lord weep between the portico and the altar. Let them say, spare your people, Lord. Do not make your inheritance an object of scorn, a byword among nations. Why should they say among the people, where is their God?
Yep, it cuts you to the heart, eh?
Yeah. We must acknowledge there is a systemic problem. Children were abused. Some people conspired. Others covered up or turned a blind eye on the abuse. What is consistent is their action or inaction put innocent, trusting children in harm's way. These children are now scarred and traumatized. Everyone has to answer for the role they played.
And that's so true, because, yes, it's important to say you're sorry, to apologize. But at this stage, you know, that is not going to heal those who have been traumatized, those who have been abused, you know.
Yeah. Many of you are angry with the church because she failed to protect the little ones. Many of you are calling for change in its handling of such incidents. The people of God expect change. They deserve change.
Important to say that. They deserve change. In a courageous and strong letter to the people of God, Pope Francis called the entire church to prayer, fasting, and repentance, saying, and the Archbishop quotes from Pope Francis, "If one member suffers, all suffer together with it," quoted from 1 Corinthians. These words of St. Paul forcefully echo in my heart as I acknowledge once more the suffering endured by many minors due to sexual abuse, the abuse of power, and the abuse of conscience perpetrated by a significant number of clerics and consecrated persons. Crimes that inflict deep wounds of pain and powerlessness, primarily among the victims, but also in their family members and in the larger community of believers and non-believers alike. Looking back to the past, no effort to beg pardon and to seek to repair the harm done will ever be sufficient. Looking ahead to the future, no effort must be spared to create a culture able to prevent such situations from happening, but also to prevent the possibility of their being covered up and perpetuated. The pain of the victims and their families is also our pain, and so it is urgent that we once more reaffirm our commitment to ensure the protection of minors and of vulnerable adults. Pope Francis invites us to unite in solidarity against this evil. He invites us to end clericalism, to work tirelessly to protect the victims and participate in transformation that makes the church a safe place for all God's children. And you know what Archbishop Jason said here earlier, you know, how can someone who accepted a vocation to shepherd the children of God prey on his sheep? And you know, you have sexual abuse in, you know, in all sorts of different areas and walks of life. But, you know, when somebody has a different profession, for want of a better word, okay, they're sick, you know, they've done this, and there's no forgiveness. I mean, you want healing. But when you think of a priest having done this, committed this, I think that is what is just really, you know, and, you know, for us as Catholics, we're not trying to say, well, oh gosh, you know, let's say we're sorry and move on by any means. We as the Catholic Church, you know, who are now finding out more and more about what happened, you know, we really hope and pray that this, and I think with Pope Francis that something is going to be done, you know, to address this. And
His Grace goes on to say his call is for deep, sustained conversion, which must impact the church on this level. And I support this call. There must be open dialogue on the rights of our children and the accountability of priests and the church workers to ensure a safe environment for our children. And the laity must also hold us accountable. Amen. In our diocese, the last few weeks have been a game changer. Every Catholic priest has been condemned just by virtue of being a Catholic priest.
Which is so sad.
It is so tragic. Each of us must be reminded of our responsibility for the safety and protection of God's children. Many years ago, the AC bishops implemented procedures to address sexual abuse of minors by clergy, seminarians, and deacons in formation are required to undergo thorough psychological screening and periodic assessment.
Amen.
We have trained three people to identify at-risk behavior. Priests also complete an internationally approved online course regarding child protection.
So those are little baby steps in the right direction.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We must raise awareness within the church and in the wider society that child abuse is wrong. Widespread incest in the Caribbean is a significant concern. The church must become the healing balm for all children who were abused. The real transformation will, however, only take place when we raise the consciousness of our whole community, laity and clergy, to speak up about any acts of abuse in church and in society. Do not be silent. Let us begin open conversations about how to protect our children at home, at school, at church, and in the wider society. While the Family Life and Youth Commissions will play a pivotal role in organizing a laity-led movement, each of us has a responsibility. And we have our first call, so we'll stop there. Good morning, welcome.
Hello, good morning, good morning. Well, we did vigil last night, precious blood, devotion, and of course the church. Crisis in the church was one of our main things. But before I went to the vigil, somebody sent me an email, and it says, since 1920, the priests have infiltrated, it's like Satan attacking the church since 1920, homosexual priests. So it's not like authentic priests that are abusing, but this was their game.
Yeah.
And Our Lady is the one, the priest said, who is going to clean the church up. So this morning I got a WhatsApp too about how we must join this 40-day fast for the crisis in the church. So girl, let us continue to pray and fast for the church crisis and what's going on here in our country today. Okay, God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, I mean, it's, you know, I suppose if you start going back in history, you know, you'd be horrified to see.
Yes,
but it's time for cleanup. It's cleanup time.
Exactly, and a lot of stories would now come out and a lot of stories will emerge.
Yeah.
But, you know, as you rightly said, it's time for us from now forward.
Yeah.
What are we going to do forward and how are we going to manage this crisis going forward?
Yeah.
And I think it's really fantastic with the some of the things that we've put in place with the psychological testing and so, which were not done in the past, you know. I think they were so excited to have a priest that they would just say, yes, come aboard, you know.
Yeah, Archbishop Jason writes, I close with the words of Pope Francis. I invite the entire holy, faithful people of God to a penitential exercise of prayer and fasting, following the Lord's command. This can awaken our conscience and arouse our solidarity and commitment to a culture of care that says never again to every form of abuse. And so, Archbishop Jason's key message, we all have a responsibility to protect our children. Let us collaborate, let us be vigilant. And the action step, read Pope Francis's letter. Discuss it with your family and groups. Discuss what needs to change in your parish and family to protect our children. And he gives us 8 scripture passages to read and reflect on. And you know, one of the sad things in this is where, you know, as Archbishop Jason said there, and I mean, I read it already, that, you know, every priest now is under scrutiny kind of thing, you know.
Yes.
And it's
every Catholic priest has been condemned just by virtue of being a Catholic priest, which is so, you know, the burden of walking the street now. And so it has become, you know, they all looked at the corner of your eyes and it is so unfair, really, you know.
And, you know, we know that there are so many good and holy priests, you know, and, you know, we don't want people to take advantage of the situation now, and because, you know, you have something against this particular priest that you're going to point fingers, or, you know, so we really, really have to pray and ask the Lord to show us the way out of this, for sure.
Yes, and also, you know, on the other hand, we have to talk to our children and educate our children as well, and empower them to speak up.
That's right.
You know,
yes, for sure.
I think that's one of the areas where we need, you know, we have another caller.
Yes, we do. Hi, welcome, caller. Good morning.
Good morning.
Hi.
I am very sad as what is happening in our church. And what I think is that brush is being painted to all priests. And we have so many devoted, anointed priests. So that is the sad part of it.
That's right.
Another part of it is that I think we need, the Pope did it, and I was listening, I have been listening, and I found that there was much accent placed on the victims who, for a lot of them, their lives have been changed totally, and, you know, we don't know what else. But something that struck me in our local scene is that there's a WhatsApp that has been going around with this Jewish pastor who is saying that the media is attacking the Catholic Church, and in the Methodist Church, how many priests acknowledged they had unsavory things with the parishioners. And when I got the 4th one on my WhatsApp, I called that friend, and because I was really upset. I said, we do not, when these things happen, say who else is doing it. It is the wrong thing,
That's
and we're
right.
supposed to correct it.
Yes, yeah.
If we don't care how many churches, how many schools the Catholic Church built at this point in time, nobody's remembering that. What they're remembering is what our priests did to these children. And that is what we have to deal with.
Yeah.
And I found that some of us found comfort in that, you know, it's happening in all of the churches. I said to one of my friends, so what you're telling me, people are just putting on God's gown and just desecrating it with that sort of behavior? That's not what we want. We want a church that is fulfilling the mandate that God put us here to do. And what we have to do at this point in time is put things in place. And some of it, because I made some suggestion to that friend, some of it may be really rigid, but if we have to do that to get good priests, because as we've been telling her, I prefer to go without communion for 6 months than to get it every day from a priest who is not doing his duties properly. So we have to deal now with quality and not quantity. Never mind how desperate we are. For a priest, we have to deal with quality. Make sure, let them go through all and every year if possible, have an assessment, have them being looked over, because if this is what we have to do to get a good church, we have got to do it. Because I love my church and I trust in God. But when I sat on TV and saw 4 young ladies who were abused and they all left the church, you know, it is sad.
It's very sad.
So what we have to do, pray for our priests, pray for the Pope, and pray that things is a cleansing and we would be able to move on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for sharing with us.
Thank you very much.
Yes. I think our sister there is really articulating, you know, very well a lot of what people are feeling
and you know, that is a tragedy, because we as a country, we like to say them too. It's not me alone. Everybody thief, the political, everybody, it's them too. And then also there's also a witch hunt that will start, you know, and the slightest the slightest sign of anything, a witch hunt starts as well. And these are all the fallouts that will happen and that we're going to have to deal with as a society.
And what is sad too, continuing our train of conversation, is that, you know, there are some priests, the younger priests, who might, you know, play basketball with the young men in the parish and give them a hug, and you know, and now you have to be very careful about things like that too. And you know,
and it's a human thing.
Yeah,
it's a human thing to do some of these things, and now you have to.
Some people do it, you know, so easily. We have another call. Good morning.
Hi, good morning.
Yes.
I'm calling on behalf of Mr. Paul King Douglas for the Tim 2018 show.
Right.
I believe I was supposed to call you. I'm calling on behalf of
Sure, to tell us about the Paul King Douglas show.
Right, yes. But first of all, let me just say thank you for allowing us to call in and talk a bit about the show and highlight it.
Right.
So the show is entitled Right About This, Talk About That. And what it is a showcase of Mr. Paul King Douglas. Of course, many fans around here even know him as Tim or Tanty Mill, one of his more popular characters.
Right.
So what it is an evening of fun, laughter, insights, and social commentary. So Mr. King Douglas, who celebrated his 75th birthday last year, coming back this year at Napa.
Right.
And the show takes a look at, of course, our society as a whole. It'll be about poetry, they'll have musical ensembles, it'll be social commentary. Paul will be doing a lot of his older work, as well as some new material as well, so fans can look forward to something new.
New, all right, good.
Yes.
That's
so
on page 190.
It will be at Napa, National Academy for the Performing Arts.
Right.
From next week, Saturday the 15th, it begins at 7:30 p.m. And Sunday, 16th of September, at 6:30 p.m.
Right.
Of course, it's an evening with Paul King Douglas, so we also have a couple special guests, the incredible Myron B., very popular Calypsonian here in Trinidad, a jazz singer, Miss Sabrina Celestin, and a champion spoken word poet, Darren Sandee.
Okay.
I'm sure a lot of the younger generation will be more familiar with Mr. Darren Sandee's work.
And are you yourself part of the show?
Sorry?
Are you yourself part of the show?
Yes, well, I will be emceeing the show. So it's my honor to be the master of ceremony for that evening.
And the show is...
But the show will really be more daddy. Well, yes, my father.
Well, just for,
Douglas.
yes, but we'll let our viewers know too that on page 19 of the Catholic News, they have all the information that you just shared with us. So in case they forgot anything you said, they can read it here for themselves. But we usually have Paul Keynes Douglas on Trinity Update or something, you know, at least once or twice a year. And so we really support this kind of, you know, show that's, you know, good for the whole family.
Healthy entertainment.
Yes, yeah.
Yes, write about this, talk about that.
And, you know, he's such, Paul Keynes Douglas is such a gift to the country and to the Caribbean, you know. I mean, he will always, no matter who comes after him, he will always be the best.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right, so we can look forward to that. And you said tickets are $250, and
Yeah,
it's at...
tickets are $250. They'll be available at Cleves, Crosby's, RIK Gulf, and Trin City, and of course the Napa box office.
Right.
If people want to find out more information, they can call 632-1647 or Napa at 627-1104. There's a lot of information on Facebook as well, and we will have Paul Keynes Douglas collection of works and materials available for sale at the actual event.
So walk with a little
with some extra cash.
Yeah.
All right, and it makes perfect gifts for family, friends, library, or tourists or visitors.
Yes.
All right.
All right,
So
great.
to look forward to.
All right, well, we wish you all of success and God's blessing on this venture.
Maybe
Thank you so much. I received that.
All right. God bless you.
Thank you. Maybe we should go to a little break now.
Yes, we've only had one break.
Yes.
And this one looks interesting. Dorothy Day, one of the 20th century's most influential Catholics. And thank God for people like her in the church that we can remember. Let's go to this clip.
Dorothy Day was one of the 20th century's most prominent lay Catholics. As her canonization cause continues, a new book seeks to inform the public on the origins of Day's mission and inspire its emulation today.
If we think of the saints as giving us a life of virtue that we can model, I think she is a profoundly important model for our contemporary society, both in the sort of life that she led and then found in God's mercy the courage to change that life, and also just as the daily witness to our obligation to others, a daily witness to the love of Jesus Christ and to the church.
Following many difficulties as a young adult, including failed relationships, an abortion, and a suicide attempt, Day converted to Catholicism. Viewing the birth of her daughter as a concrete example of God's love, she felt called to show His mercy to others. Day went on to dedicate her life to the less fortunate and became a strong activist, also using her experience as a writer to reflect on spirituality.
Her writings, even what we consider her spiritual writings, are very concrete. They're very based on just real life examples, and so they're very engaging in that way. She saw it as an opportunity to practice the spiritual works of mercy, to counsel the doubtful, to comfort the sorrowful, to admonish the sinner.
With this piece, the author hopes to shed more light on servant of God Dorothy Day's philosophy, one inspired by St. Francis of Assisi and one that has surely inspired his namesake.
That book looks like a must-read.
Yes, yes.
Especially, I think, you know, in these days when we've just finished talking about all of the sexual abuse in the church. This is a time for us as Catholics, as Christians, to pick up that kind of book and read about those who practice a true life of virtue. You know, who even in their death, they have left this world, but we can still look back and say, yes, you know, they didn't have any sort of skeletons in the closet, but we know that these people really lived a life, you know, of virtue. And, you know, people like Dorothy Day and all the saints, there's so many saints in the church we don't know about.
Yeah, and you know, Suzanne, as well, you always find, for me, there's always something that you're dealing. There's always a tragic something in your life that you're dealing with, a part of you that you're trying to change, and that, you know, there's always a challenge. And I guess for our priests and our nuns and people who have chosen that, live that consecrated life, there will always be that some little part of you that you know is your tragic flaw that's happening there, and you have to deal with it constantly, and it will walk with you through life. It will stay there with you through life, and I think, you know, for all of us, we have to work with others and understand that there is really no perfect person, and we have to walk with each other that way as well. And well, I see the news.
For those who haven't heard,
oh my God,
this certainly was out on WhatsApp.
All over. Yeah, WhatsApp seems to be where it's at now.
Yes.
Yeah, and this father, Jose Marie, it's so sad. The Grand Couva police are investigating a robbery at the Presbytery of Our Lady of Montserrat Church in Tortuga. And he was, of course, robbed after the Mayfair. They thought, not the Mayfair, the harvest, and they thought that he had all the money with him and so. But I mean, you know, like we were discussing in our parish, everybody knows they don't keep the money. I mean,
the bandits don't know that.
The bandits didn't know that. Yeah. Everybody knows they don't keep the money there.
That's right.
They
you have security companies that come and take the money away.
Right away. I mean, you know. So, but poor guy, he had just come back from traveling as well, so he had his little change with him and so on. I think he had the offering, the Sunday offering there, which they got. And so, but
and he was woken up at 1:30 in the morning.
Yes.
I mean, he's asleep and door closed, and to be woken up with these, is it 3 or 4? I think.
Yes.
3 assailants wearing masks and
threatening
gloves.
to cut off his feet and all kinds of things, you know.
Lord. And then they stole his car to be able to get out of the area. And if you know where that Our Lady of Montserrat Church is in Tortuga, it really is kind of secluded, and it's so beautiful.
But it is so beautiful. During the vacation, during the August vacation, I took out 2 granddaughters to see the church. They have pictures standing in front of the church.
Yes.
It is such a beautiful church.
And the whole area, the view.
And it's the church.
Think of something terrible going on
They call
there.
it the Church of Statues because they have so many saints' statues around there, and it's such a quaint, beautiful little church, you know, and well, and then right under they have another one.
I think it was 2 days apart.
Yes, the Benedictine. I think his happened on August 31st. Yeah, 2 days apart. Brother Marius, 78, beaten about his body by a young man on the ground of the abbey. He went to feed his dogs, and everybody knows Brother Marius. Oh my God!
Yes, and I mean he's
78 years old.
I mean,
you know.
And to beat and attack him in such a way that you would break ribs, and you know.
Yeah, broken ribs and in terrible pain. And you know, I mean, I walk on the mount on mornings, and people know. I mean, these monks, what do they have?
Yes,
what do they have except a whole lot of little? You know, why would you go in there to rob
these people? But this person,
people?
I don't even know if they went to rob. They were on the premises, and apparently he must
so
have.
They just
yes, he told them to
to
leave, and this person just
decided to beat him instead.
Yes. Sad.
Yes, and I know because the grounds are closed, the abbey's closed from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. So 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. in the morning, you know, you're really not supposed to be there, obviously, for, you know, unless there's an event happening or something. So.
And for those of you who want to know, yes, the cathedral remains closed despite the optimism. That's our Cathedral of the Immaculate Conception on Independence Square. Despite the optimism of the engineers last week, delays have prevented the opening of the cathedral. Of course, the earthquake on the 21st of August had caused a collapse of various parts of the cathedral. Father Sergio says that the cathedral is structurally sound, and once they fix the beams and whatnot, then he expressed a strong hope that they will be able to open within about a month's time. So the cathedral remains closed.
And well, the next page is yours because it's communication and sickness.
Yes. Well, this one is about sickness in the world, and Cygnus is the Catholic communications body in the world. It's Cygnus World, and it was formed back in 2001 when 2 different bodies, cinema and radio and television, they all came together, and they became Cygnus. And so we have Cygnus World, we have Cygnus Latin America, and now we have Cygnus Caribbean, which was recently formed. So the first article is about Cygnus World.
And I'm looking for the second one.
It's right there, yes, with it. Cygnus World has emphasized the duty of Catholic communicators to take up the pain of the victims and the defenseless. Same thing we are just talking about, you know, from the editorial to the back page. This is in response to the recently emerging stories of the sexual abuse of minors by clergy in the church community. And, they talk about the Pope's letter and the statement of Father Louis Garcia, who is the ecclesial assistant of Cygnus World, said that Catholic communicators must stand in solidarity with the victims and insist on transparency and truthful reporting of the facts as an avenue to renewal of the Church. Our mission as communicators, he says, is to always call for a search for truth, truth that is discerned in the light of the gospel. We seek a profound moment of reconciliation that is neither a justification nor a form of complacency in the face of what happened. So this is Cygnus World that is speaking out about the situation, and that is, part of the work and ministry that they do. The second part is now about Cygnus Caribbean, where we held our annual general meeting at the Seminary of St. John Vianney at Mount St. Benedict. That was from Tuesday the 4th to yesterday, Thursday the 6th. So there are just pictures here of the beginning of that meeting. In next week's Catholic News, we'd have a more comprehensive account. So you have a picture there of some of the delegates meeting in the conference room, and at the beginning of we began with Mass, but also we have the enthroning of the Bible, which is part of what happens at the Cygnus AGM every year. That we know that the Word of God is so important, and so that we have that enthroning of the Bible. Gospel is read. The Word of God is brought in with two people on either side holding candles, and it remains there throughout the 3-day session, so that always God's Word is there, part of our foundation.
And I think the communicators now have to understand as well, the leadership in communication is very different. A lot of times we make you leader because we believe that you will hold on to the status quo, and now it is requiring a lot of adaptive leadership where you have to look at what is happening and really trash the status quo and do what has to be done, and that is what Jesus did, and that's what he was crucified for. So the leadership now has taken on a whole different aura when you think about it.
And we have pictures here too of Victor Donowa of AudioWorks Limited during an audio session. Monsignor William John Lewis, who is on the Cygnus Caribbean board, but he's also representative of for Cygnus Caribbean, Cygnus Latin America, because he speaks Spanish, so he's just the right one to be part of that. But what was different too about this year's Cygnus Caribbean Annual General Meeting is that at previous AGMs, people have asked, the very people who are around the table say, we're talking about communications, but many of us don't understand the nitty-gritty of audio and video. And so what was new about this AGM is that the afternoon sessions included, as we see here with Victor Donowa of AudioWorks Limited, a little understanding about the technical aspects. We had audio, we had video, and so that made it very interesting too. And then you didn't have to be sort of sitting around a table all day as we've done in the past, just talking. But it piqued your interest too. And one of the things that Victor Donowa said is that, you think of, well, audio is audio. You go to Mass or whatever, you have a mic. But he said it is so key and crucial for our Catholic churches to have good audio.
That is so true.
Well, many of us, you go to a funeral or you go to Mass and you sit down in one part of the church and you can't hear what the priest is saying.
And even last Sunday, we were chatting with a gentleman at St. Joseph Church, and, he's not from the parish. And he said, well, he had to start coming to the parish because the parish he went to is locked in. And it sounds so muffled, it hurts his ear. He can't. It's affecting his deafness because he's getting problems to hear in one ear. And he said he finds that he goes home in so much pain. So he has started coming to that church simply because the audio is so much clearer and he can hear. And these are factors.
So we don't think about it, but having good audio can make or break your attendance at Mass, at church, and so it's something serious to look at. So. A lot will be coming out of the AGM, and next week you will see much more about it. One of the things that we recognize too, which was voiced by one of the young people, and we're trying to involve young people now in Cygnus Caribbean, is that Cygnus World, Cygnus Caribbean was seen sort of as an an elite and maybe exclusive group. You know, you see after the general meeting, you see a little paragraph and a picture, and most people don't even know who is Cygnus. So we want to kind of, you know, do that and allow for visibility of Cygnus and to let people know more and more what is Cygnus Caribbean doing, what they are, what we are, and what we're doing.
And how we strive for professionalism as well, you know. And
so you're going to be seeing a lot more about that.
Which is one of the things I always boast about and feel very proud of, that, you know, the Catholic community, when it comes to communications, there's always an authentic communication that happens there, rather than, you know, we won't go into that. Yes.
I think we might have, we do have time for another clip here, and this one is Pope Francis's other important messages in Ireland, where we know we just recently concluded the World Family Day. So let's go to that now, and then we'll come back.
In Ireland, Pope Francis faced two issues. On the one hand, he tried to remedy the heartbreaking rage caused by sexual abuse and the cover-up. On the other hand, the Pope also travelled to the country to speak about the family. In front of newlyweds and those engaged, he said that in the family, sorrows divide and the joys multiply. The Pope insisted on giving importance to gestures because they help to create a good family atmosphere. To explain it, he used a personal memory.
I remember once.
Avrei avuto 5 anni.
I was 5 years old.
Sono entrato a casa.
I went into the house.
E lì,
and
nella sala da pranzo,
I was in the dining room.
Papà arrivava dal lavoro.
Dad came home from work.
In quel momento, prima di me,
and in front of me,
io ho visto papà e mamma baciandosi.
Mum and Dad kissed.
Non lo dimentico mai.
I'll never forget it.
Cosa bella, stanco.
How nice. He was tired from work, but had
di esprimere l'amore alla sua moglie.
The strength to express his love for his wife.
Figli,
let your children see you like this, caressing, kissing, hugging.
Finally, the Pope insisted on taking care of the relationship between generations. On the one hand, to help the elderly and listen to their wisdom.
Una società, ascoltate bene questo.
A society, listen to this closely.
Una società che non valorizza.
A society that doesn't value grandparents
è una società senza
is a society with no future.
And on the other hand, teach the children and invest time with them. Parents are the bridge between adults and children.
I figli imparano a perdonare quando vedono che I genitori.
Children learn to forgive when they see that their parents forgive one another.
Se capiamo questo, possiamo apprezzare.
If we understand this, we can appreciate the greatness of Jesus' teaching on fidelity in marriage.
1, 2, 3, 4.
The last great piece of advice was given by the event itself. The participation of great artists and public enthusiasm helped to create a festive atmosphere, as it is in any family gatherings.
Don't you wish you were there?
Yes, you certainly enjoy that dance.
Oh gosh, and then that aerial view of it, fabulous, fabulous. Okay, so before Sandee reads the Archbishop's official, we just want to help our brothers and sisters in different communities advertise a couple things. And one is the Eternal Light community. They have one of their ministries is Amica House, and they're presenting Families Who Can Cook under the patronage of Dr. Jean Ramjohn Richards. And that is on Sunday, the 23rd of September. So that would be not Sunday.
This Sunday coming, the following Sunday.
Yes. What this date is in
not
9.
This Sunday,
so
not next Sunday.
The one after. And it's at the Center of Excellence, and there'll be dinner and entertainment from 6:30 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. And your contribution is just $225. You have numbers here for tickets and info. You can get in touch with Eternal Light Community at 645-0525, Amica House 662-0170, Sister Jude Marie at 770-0549. So any of those numbers, Eternal Light Community. And you know, even if you say, well, you know, I can't go to that, I live alone, I don't drive or whatever, you know, just make the contribution, get a ticket for $225 and donate it to somebody who can go. So it's not just about buying a ticket and they end up with nobody attending, or, you know, you want people to attend and make it a beautiful evening. So sponsor someone, get a ticket, and if you can't go, at least somebody will go on your behalf. And also on page 5 here, we have a magical experience, oneness. St. Anne's RC Church, they're having a Sunday Fun Day Family Day, and we have a little more time for this one. This is Sunday, the 7th of October, from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. It's all day at the south foyer of the grandstand at Queen's Park, Savannah. Games all day, pick a card, cake store, live entertainment, much more. That's on the 7th of October. So yes, we have those two things.
And I could just put a little plug as well for my parish in St. Joseph. On Sunday, this Sunday, at 4 o'clock, we'll be having a liturgy for the Migrants and Refugee Program, which is going to be launched at our parish.
Very necessary.
Really, yes. And we're really planning a big event, and we're hoping that everyone would turn out, the migrants and refugees in that area would come out, and also people from the parish who want to come and support and in any way assist. And that's at 4 o'clock this Sunday at St. Joseph RC Church.
Right, so don't miss that, that's important.
Yes, and we're expecting a full house.
Amen,
so please. So the official.
Right.
Dear sisters and brothers, every year, the month of September is dedicated to all those who volunteer their time, talent, and treasure as catechists at our parishes. I thank all on behalf of the local church for your commitment and work, and I encourage everyone to participate in the activities planned in the vicariates to highlight Catechetical Month. For the past few days, there have been statements, comments, and discussions on the implications of government's decision to better manage the Petrotrin refinery at Pointe-à-Pierre. The repercussions will be felt across the nation. Every citizen will be affected in one way or another. As a church, let us pray for our decision makers in every sector of society. Today, each and every one of you is invited, which is Sunday coming, is invited to the devotion in honor of Our Lady of Fatima at the Laventil National Shrine. Devotions begin around 2 p.m. and will include the celebration of Holy Mass. Father Robert Christo will deliver the talk, while the worship ministry will be led by the Penal community, which is his community. Charles Jason Gordon, Archbishop of Port of Spain.
Well, you can imagine Father Robert Christo.
Yes, he will. Yes. He's a communication.
He will have his following, of course, at Laventil Devotions, and then Mr. Communication
Father
himself.
Robert Christo himself is an event.
Yes. So please, let's go out there, and you know, and more than ever now, we need, you know, the prayer and the intercession of Our Lady. So I think I'm seeing the clock there ticking down, so you're going to have to read the Gospel Meditation by Father Raymond Francis yourself. And there's an interesting article here on page 11 about foster care available for parents in Trinidad, or adults who have no children, but the clock is ticking. So you get your own copy of the Catholic News.
And then on the center page, there's some beautiful pictures of the pilgrimage to Ghana. So lots to look out for.
Plenty we haven't talked about. God bless you.